Hi, students. As you probably already know or should know, my name is David Granger. Um, I've been teaching at Geneseo about 21 years, I think it is. Um, and this class, Intd203, I've been teaching at least 2 sections of the class since I've been at Geneseo. So I've been teaching it for quite a long time. Hope you're doing well. What I wanted to do with this lecture was to go over the syllabus with you. Um, the syllabus is rather lengthy, and I don't have time to go through everything in detail. So I would encourage you, when you have some time on your own, to read through it a little more carefully and email me if you have any questions about the syllabus. I'm perfectly happy to respond to any questions that you might have. So I'm just going to try and touch on the highlights in this particular syllabus introduction. So I'm going to share the syllabus here. And again, I'll touch on the sort of the main points here and give you a little sense for things that we're going to be doing down the road a little bit too. But I'll highlight the things that we'll be doing here in the short term. So my email address, Granger Geneseo, please use that regularly to contact me. My office phone number is on there, but I think I've been in my office once over the last 3 months, so that's not a good way to get in touch with me. The best way is through my email. I'll be working from home, at least for the next several months, so I can check email regularly and should be able to get back to you very quickly if you have any questions. My office hours are going to be virtual as well. TBD basically means when you need to talk with me about something, send me an email. If we can handle it over email, that's fine. If not, we will set up a Zoom meeting. And I can usually do those the same day or the day after I'm contacted. My schedule has that kind of flexibility. So please don't feel like you're sort of out there on your own, without the kind of support that you need. I'm here. I'm regularly available. So just send me an email if you need to speak with me about anything. Even though this is an online asynchronous class, I'm basically following a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule, which is what I usually do during the school year. So in terms of the reading assignments and due dates for things, you'll notice that those are all Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. In terms of the due date for anything that you'll be turning into me, so that would be discussion question responses, papers, exams, you'll see that everything will be due 11:59, the night on which the due date is. So you really will have, for all things, plenty of advance time, plenty of time to work on things. I'll be sending exams out in the morning and giving you all day to get those back to me. So even if you've got another class or two, during the day, you should still have plenty of time. If, however, you run into an issue, and again, I know if you have other asynchronous classes, the times might be sort of all over the place. Please send me an email. Let me know of the situation because I might be able to accommodate you if you have some kind of a scheduling issue. You'll see the health and well-being in a stressful time, COVID information on here. You probably had this on some of your other syllabi. I think things went pretty well last semester. I think both myself and the students sort of realized how much information and sort of contact time you have when we meet regularly face to face before and after class, where you can talk with your peers, where you can talk to me before class and after class. And I know you're missing that kind of opportunity. So even though we'll be sending me things and I'll be responding and uploading some lectures at times, I know it can be a little difficult. And we made it through last semester. I'm going to do things pretty much the same way I did in the fall. But again, don't feel like you're sort of out there on your own. Try and keep up with the syllabus. And when things are due, remember, as I mentioned in an announcement, over the weekend, the syllabus is under files in Canvas, not under syllabus. So please make sure to check under files. But try to keep up with it. If you find that you fall behind for some reason and you're not getting things turned in on time, please email me and let me know of the situation. It's obviously disturbing when somebody's not turning in things and not logging into Canvas. You don't know what's going on, etc. So let me know if there's something going on. It's easier to let me know, early on than to, wait 2 weeks and then not turn things in and get far behind, because then it's harder to kind of figure out how we can have you catch up. So let me know if you're having issues, either physical or mental. I know it's really stressful doing these classes the way we've been doing them. So again, please let me know. And you can always contact the Dean of Students. That contact number is on here. You can use their email address. Flexibility, I think, is really the key to make things work. Sometimes I might get a video posted late or not get the response, discussion question responses back to you as quick as we both would like. So a little flexibility there. I will show you the same flexibility when it comes to things, getting things turned in on time. So as long as, you don't fall too far behind and you let me know when you're having issues, we can be flexible when we have to. The Teachers Ed Resource Center, I have that address on here. You probably won't be using that much until you get into your Block 2 courses, but you can look and see what's there in terms of information and content. We also have created a new anti-racism library guide for education that you might want to check out. Things having to do with teaching, how people teach, instructional practices, things having to do with curriculum, all kinds of issues. And we've just been putting that together. Actually, we've really been working on that in the end of the fall semester and over intersession. So that's pretty new. Library Guide in Education and Research. You can find the anti-racist LibGuide through that. Those of you who are in the School of Education or pre-majors in the School of Education, and that includes people who are in majoring in a content area but are getting adolescent certification. You will need at the end of the semester to get a subscription to TaskStream, which is an electronic portfolio, if you don't already have a subscription. And you'll be uploading one of your assignments. It'll actually be the key assignment for this class, which is a digital media research project. You'll be uploading that project to TaskStream 2 at the end of the semester. If you don't need TaskStream for another class, you can wait until later in the semester to get your subscription. And again, at the end of the semester, you'll be uploading the assignment for this class. As you move through your other courses and blocks, there'll be other assignments you'll also be uploading to TaskStream. The assignments that we chose for TaskStream, basically, if you look at all those assignments together, they basically cover all the things we'd like our students to be able to know and to be able to do by the time they graduate. So that's how we kind of put that together. We use it for accreditation purposes. We are a fully accredited School of Education, which is as we've been moving through accreditations in the last 10, 15 years, each one is more difficult, more challenging, but we've been able to up our game and be accredited as a School of Education. So that is important. And the accreditors want to know what kind of work our students are doing. And we collect data from TaskStream in terms of how students are performing on various assignments. If you look under files and Canvas for our course, you'll see that there are two things. I believe one is a PowerPoint, the other might be a document, but they both have information about TaskStream and about applying to the School of Education. So I'd encourage you to check those out. They have some dates on there for applications. They also have information on how to get your subscription to TaskStream started, etc. So as we move into the semester, you're going to check those two things out. And again, those are under Files and Canvas. This course really, as Educational Foundations or Social Foundations of Education, is really a combination of history, sociology, and philosophy of education. And we use those different disciplines to look at major issues in education, both historically and from a contemporary perspective. If you look at our core text, which is the Tozer Text, School and Society, if you look over the syllabus assignments, you'll see the first half of the course will be historical. The second half of the course will be all contemporary, looking at these issues today. And you can see by this description, we'll be looking at legal and judicial questions, economics and politics of schooling, curriculum and instruction. Diversity is going to be a key theme for the class. And we'll look at diversity in relation to equity. That is, we'll look at diversity in terms of gender, socioeconomics, race and ethnicity, sexual orientation, all kinds of diversity, and looking at whether or not all students, regardless of their background and their identity, are being have available to them an equitable education, right? In other words, are they treated fairly? Are they treated fairly when you look at their race, when you look at their socioeconomics, gender, sexual orientation, et cetera, right? So diversity and equity is going to be the key theme in the class. And we'll really use that to look at all these other questions, the legal and judicial issues, economics and politics of schooling, et cetera. What Educational Foundations is kind of does is it gives us a way and look at issues in education at a real fundamental sort of level. Before Educational Foundations was invented at Teachers College at Columbia University, students had to take separate courses in all three areas, sociology, history, and philosophy of education. But those were combined into Educational Foundations and turned into a kind of an issues-based program. And that's how it's still taught today in most instances. Course rationale, I'm not going to go over this, but you'll see how the course fits in with SUNY Geneseo, with our mission statement at Geneseo, with the kind of teachers we would like our graduates to be. Those of you who are going to be going into teaching, I know not all of you are, but for those who are. For those who are not, I think you'll find it very valuable, informative in just looking at both the history of education and all of the issues today that we're trying to address in education, with all the challenges we face, with diversity and equity, with socioeconomics. I mean, there's so many things that are a challenge today. The new kind of global economy that we have and how that's impacted education. All those sort of issues. Obviously, I think those are interesting and important in general, but certainly those are vital for people who are considering a career in teaching. Also an accommodations statement on here for the Accessibility Services Office. If you need accommodations and haven't already spoken with them, please do so. Once you get some kind of an accommodations document, please forward that on to me. So I have that. I know often it deals with getting more time for papers and exams, and that's no problem. As I said before, everything that's going to be due, it'll be due at 11:59 the day it's due. So it makes it a little less of an issue for students, but if it's going to be a problem, let me know. Certainly, you'll find that you will be getting through Canvas copies of responses to all the discussion questions that we'll be doing. And you'll have all my lectures, and you can always go back and re-listen to them and take notes on them, et cetera, whatever you need to do that you think is going to be helpful. But again, please let me know if you have accommodations through the Accessibility Office. I'm certainly very happy to accommodate you with those. Just kind of an accreditation disclaimer that we do sometimes collect work from students to show, now it's CAPE, it used to be called NCAPE, who kind of at the agency that we go to get our accreditation. And we always take names and all identifiers off student work that we might make available to them to look at. But if you still would not like any of your work to be used, even with all identifiers taken off, just drop me an email and let me know. And I'll make sure if we do collect any work samples from this semester that we don't use any of yours. Conceptual framework for the School of Ed. This was another thing that was really important for accreditation. So that all of us as faculty and staff in the School of Ed had to think through what's important for us, for our students to know. And this is also where we get the key assignments from in the different classes you'll be taking. There are three main proficiencies here. Rigorous liberal arts and sciences education. That's something the college provides for you. I would say if there's one thing that is most important or most valuable for our graduates in getting jobs in the teaching field, it's the fact that they went to a school where they had to have a rigorous liberal arts and sciences education. I know many of you are not happy about having to take all these core classes. I certainly understand that. Hope you find something you're interested in, etc. But it is the thing that makes you the strongest candidates for jobs. And many employers tell us that when they get a list of people applying for jobs, they automatically take out the Geneseo graduates and put them in a separate pile because they know they want to seriously consider them because they were exposed to that rigorous liberal arts and sciences education. So it is valuable for you in part because it helps you to be a better reader, critical reader, right? Problem solver, to be able to communicate better. And spoken communication and written communication, all those things are critical for being teachers. And those are all things that your core classes and the liberal arts and sciences education you have as your foundation really provide you with. Number two is teacher as constructivist educator. Constructivism is basically, it's really the most contemporary learning theory that emphasizes that students learn better when they're active learners, when they're doing things hands-on, when they're working together in a social environment. So we will both teach you to be constructivist educators and try to use constructivist methods in how we teach you. Now that is more challenging when we're doing asynchronous online instruction as I am. Nonetheless, you will have opportunities to share your ideas. You'll be sending things to me that I'll be sharing with the rest of the class. I'll want to know your opinions about things we're talking about, etc. So both we want you to learn how to teach in a constructivist manner, and we do our best to actually teach you in our teacher education programs through a constructivist kind of approach. And we'll see the history of constructivism a little later during the semester. Teacher as reflective practitioner, right? A commitment to inquiry and reflective practice. Reflection is really crucial. I think it's crucial for any profession, but certainly in teaching. Don't just go through the motions, right? You don't just want to do things because a colleague tells you that here's the way you should teach, or something else is precedent in the school, let's say, where you find yourself teaching. You want to be reflective about what you're doing and what you're being asked to do, and are there better ways to do things, etc. I always highly recommend that my students, when they get to student teaching, keep a journal, jot things down. What worked, what didn't work, what do you seem to have little concerns about, that all students might not be following along, that maybe you need to incorporate another modality in your teaching, where it be hands-on learning or more visual learning, whatever that might be. Being reflective is important. You'll also find that teaching is not as enjoyable unless you reflect and adjust and adapt. You don't want to be going through the motions, doing the same thing year in, year out, right? That makes teaching more of a chore than an occupation, a profession. So that reflection component is really important. And a part of that is inquiry, keeping up to date in the field, right? Keeping up to date in terms of curriculum and teaching methods. You'll be doing professional development. Again, those of you who are going to become teachers. So we'd like to get you started on that road as reflective practitioners in the School of Education. The other thing along with these three proficiencies are dispositions. These are basically attitudes we'd like our students to have about learning. Number one, you can see is about professionalism. Number two is about active engagement in teaching. Some of that will involve that constructivist approach to teaching that I mentioned earlier. And also welcoming diversity, right? All students, we know, cannot learn at the same level, but all students have their own potential, and they all deserve, in a democratic nation where we claim to provide equity and accommodate diversity, all students deserve to achieve whatever their potential is, right? We all have unique potential because we're all unique as human beings. That's the way I would like you to think about, challenging all students in their learning, right? With whatever their, potential is. You don't want to teach down to students. You don't want to overwhelm them by teaching over their heads, right? You want to meet them at a place where they're forced to grow and to push themselves, but where they can achieve, and again, eventually reach whatever their potential is. So again, you'll see me talking about that theme over the course of the semester a little more too. The different learning outcomes for the class, you can see there are 12 of those. They deal with philosophy, sociology, and history, obviously. They also deal with inquiry. They deal with looking at schools as social institutions, how they work, different kinds of literacy, reading, writing, speaking, and listening kinds of literacy, different levels of literacy that we'll be talking about, how teachers can influence schooling, the way their society impacts them as teachers, right? Number 12, reflect on the self as a sociocultural construct and a potential agent of change in society. That's both for you and for your students, right? You're shaped by your social cultural environment. And it's important to think about that because that element of your education is really important in terms of the kind of person you become. And it often involves inculcation in habits, right? Ways of doing things, ways of thinking that you just automatically take on because the ones that function in the environment that you find yourself in. But you don't necessarily think about the habits you're forming as you're forming them, right? As you grow older, and again, becoming teachers as well. And I think it's valuable for all people. Think about your beliefs, your attitudes, how you respond to things, your habits broadly conceived, and are they really democratic, right? Are you open-minded? What kind of prejudices might you have? We all have some. The first, most important thing for teachers in working towards being as equitable as they can as teachers is to recognize that we all have prejudices. They tend to come from our social cultural environment, right? From where we grew up. Family, community, school, friends, etc. Right? So reflecting on those is really important. If you look at these outcomes, you'll see the CFP numbers here. And those have to do CFP and CFD. Those are, the CFD are these dispositions, the CFP are these proficiencies. That will allow you to see how these elements of the overall education program are manifest in this particular course. Then you see all the assessments here. The bolded assessments are the ones that tend to be the most weighed in looking at these particular outcomes, right? And you'll see those assessments or assignments listed later in the syllabus here. Basic course requirements, keeping up to date reading assigned material is crucial. You'll be doing shortly a self-profile paper, which is just sort of a mini biography of your educational experience. You'll be doing two to 3 page response papers, which are opinion papers on an issue of your choosing from what we read about or discuss in class. You'll have this digital research media project to do. That'll be the big project for the class. That's due at the end of the semester. Any quizzes, and I probably won't do any quizzes just because it's more difficult doing it online asynchronous to make quizzes work. But you will have a midterm and a final exam, obviously, as well. You can see how things are weighted here. Response questions, question responses for discussion questions we'll be doing on a regular basis. Midterm and final, those are weighed the same because basically it's going to be a similar kind of exam. Your response papers will be 20%. Again, 2 of those. And your history research project, the main project, will be worth 25% of your course grade. Scale for letter grades, you can see there. Again, I mentioned the key assignment is this school history research digital media project. Every one of your School of Ed classes will have at least 1 key assignment, some will have 2. And again, those are chosen directly from that conceptual framework for the School of Education that's above here. All these different elements are what we use to decide what should be key assignments in our education program for our students. So here are some, here are the assignments. Self-profile paper, again, it's the first one due. I'll eventually show you the schedule that we have for the semester, but you'll see that it's on there. It's coming up pretty soon. Doesn't receive a formal grade, but it's really important both for me to get to know you and for you to have something to look back on when you write your response papers. Because I'm going to ask you to think about your opinions, your responses to different issues, and where you think those came from, right? What has influenced your views and attitudes about different educational issues? Self-profile paper will be useful for that, and I actively encourage students to incorporate their self-profile into the response papers because of that. Gives you something to look back on. Basically, it's just answering these questions and putting them in paragraph form. That's it. There's nothing fancier than that. And then the regular double-spaced 12-point font, etc. Right in the first person, it is a kind of a mini biography. Discussion questions. I usually use these for discussion purposes, which is why they're called discussion questions, where I have students get together in individual groups. I'm not doing that this semester. I'm still calling them discussion questions. It's still the same questions. However, instead, what we'll be doing this semester is you'll be assigned to one of 5 groups. Each group will be assigned one set of discussion questions for each of our course text chapters where we have discussion questions due. And essentially they start with chapter 2 and go through the end of our main course text. The text, Tozer's the main author, and it's called School and Society. You will give one paragraph, usually works, sometimes 2, it's up to you, responding to your discussion questions for your particular group. You do that independently. You turn those into me through Canvas. I read through all of those, and I put together a composite response because we have about 35, 36 people, and we'll only have 5 groups. We'll have quite a few people on each question set. So I'll go through each question set with the 7 or 8 different student responses I have to each question, put together a composite. I'll add some notes of my own or any corrections I think I should make, and I'll get those back to you within a day or 2 of when you turn in those discussion questions. So you will have all the responses to all the discussion questions that you will need for exams, and if you want to use those in your papers as well. That's the way the discussion questions will sort of work for the semester. And again, you'll see on the syllabus when the discussion questions are due. So in a couple days, I will make sure everybody knows what group they're in, so you know which set of discussion questions to write responses to. If you just wanted to download and use the discussion question document that will be attached to the assignment in Canvas, you can do that. And again, I'll get those back to you so you have all those responses that you need. Next up are the response papers. Again, 2 of those. They're just 2 to 3 pages in length, so they're brief. You choose the topic. One of the 2 papers needs to incorporate a current events piece, so some kind of a news item. Students will sometimes want to kind of look electronically through the library website at their local newspaper and see what kind of issues are going on in their local school, see if any of them relate to what we're discussing in class, and then incorporate that current events piece into the response paper. You can certainly base their response paper on the current events piece, or you can just use the current events piece just to enhance your paper in some other way, to give an example of something you're talking about, let's say. Only one of the 2 response papers needs to have a current events piece with it. You decide which one. Sometimes students want to do a current events piece for both response papers. That's fine. But you're only requested and required to do one current event piece with one of the response papers. Make sure it's a news item, not an editorial. And it can come from, as it says here, magazine, newspaper, or other news periodical. And these days, we know many of those are available online to use, so you should be able to find something. And again, these are where you can incorporate your self-profile papers to think about why you chose the topic you did, since you'll be choosing your own topics for these papers, and why you gave the response that you did to that topic, right? Why your opinion about standardized testing is what it is, why you chose that topic for your response paper, let's say, right? So the big project, again, is the School History Digital Media Research Project. So there are several paragraphs here describing it. You'll see that is due on May 18th. We usually have an opportunity for students to present those for each other. We don't this semester. So I'm still calling it in places here a presentation because you'll be doing it in the form of a PowerPoint. but you won't be doing it as a presentation for your peers. You'll turn it into me as in a PowerPoint, and I will review it as a presentation and evaluate it. And again, it's late in the semester. May 18 is the due date for that. I mentioned before, you need to get a TaskStream subscription, upload this project to TaskStream. You'll have May 21st to upload it to TaskStream, as it says on here. That is just for School of Ed students, right? If you're not a School of Ed student, so you're not one of our School Ed programs and not one of our adolescent certification programs, you don't need to worry about TaskStream. That's just for the School of Education students. What you'll be doing for this project is choosing a school. We'd like you to choose a school. For this class, I'd like you to choose a school other than the one you attended that you can research totally online. So a school that's got a really good website, lots of links. Maybe they have available scans of yearbooks, other kinds of documents, data about the school, et cetera. And you choose what we're calling a diversity and equity issue to look at in that particular school. And it has to be a diversity equity issue. So you have to look at diversity in some way. Again, it can be gender. It can be socioeconomics. It can be race or ethnicity. It can be learning styles. It can be sexual orientation. It can be diversity in the curriculum of the school. It can be diversity in terms of special needs students. And are those students being treated equitably, regardless of their race, socioeconomics, learning style, sexual orientation, special needs status, etc. Right? So pretty early in the semester, I'm going to want you to choose your school and your topic. You'll be turning into me 3 updates, which are just sort of, I'm asking you kind of where you are with the project and what you've accomplished. You'll see those are due dates for those in the syllabus to give me those, those project updates. I will be sharing with you shortly as well how to format the PowerPoint for this particular project, because it's going to be more like a regular book page in its look, not like a traditional PowerPoint. If you look in Canvas, you'll see that there are some student samples of projects to look at to see what the project is supposed to look like in terms of its format. And then again, I will be sharing with you, it actually will be a link put together by Steve Dresbach in the library that will help you to set up the PowerPoint for the project. I will also be sharing with you from Becky Leathersich, who is our education librarian from Milne Library, some kind of a tutorial on searching for information, accessing it, evaluating it, etc. And I'll make that available to you as well in the first couple of weeks here of the semester, so that you can choose your school, start kind of looking at it, thinking about it, what kind of issue you might want to look at in the particular school. You might want to choose your issue first, and then look for a school. You might want to check your, choose your school first. It can be another school that was close to your school. Maybe one that it was very different from yours, even though it was close. It can be one on the other side of the country in California or Florida, whatever. One of the things I know students really learned doing this last semester, because we used to have them do their own school, but because the demographic and the area of Geneseo is relatively regional, we started getting the same topics, the same presentations, the same schools, et cetera. We wanted students to branch out, which is why we want them to do a different school than their own. But I found last semester students were really interested to see how different education is in different states, right? New York State has a Regents board, very specific requirements for testing and for curriculum, how the Regents tests work, all those kind of things. Curriculum, what's in the curriculum, what's not. All those things you'll find are very different in other states. And so sometimes you might just want to look at a school that's very different in a completely different part of the country for your project, as long as you can find those online resources. Other things you'll be using as online resources will be the State Department of Education websites. Now, the federal government requires they keep those up to date with lots of information. So you'll find lots of information on your school for those websites. Just to get a sense for what they look like, you might want to look at the one for New York State, the NYSED, New York State Education Department website. You might want to actually just go ahead and search for your school and look at all the information that's there on your school. Test scores, demographics, all kinds of information that you'll find there. Every state has something like that. then you'll be able to access that for your particular school, even if it's an out-of-state school. Sometimes library collections, history collections are available online. You can use photos from the school if it's in anything that's already been a published document. Newspaper articles, meeting minutes, all kinds of things I have listed here. It's not a requirement, but I also encourage students to do some kind of a interview with a teacher or staff member of the administration, maybe even more than one in the school you're looking at. If you can't do a live interview over Zoom or something, you can always just send somebody some questions and get them to respond to the questions. Something like that, do it over email if you don't want to do it or can't do it over Zoom or Google or whatever sort of face-to-face online forum you want to use. Again, once you choose your school and your project and you've got things underway, don't wait until the end of the semester to try to set up any interviews or to send interview questions to somebody, because you'll find that everybody's busy. It takes a while for them to get back to you, to get things scheduled, etc. Sometimes it takes emailing somebody a couple times before they respond. So don't wait until the end of the semester to try to set up any interviews, or even if you do things via interview questions rather than a live face-to-face interview. Most of the projects are between 25 and 30 slides. You'll be able to see that when you look at these samples that I have put in Canvas. Some of this will be graphs, tables, photographs, pictures, all kinds of stuff that you could add to these. Out of those 25 or 30 slides, 8 to 9 of those you should have the equivalent of 8 to 9 typewritten pages. What students typically do, and I think it probably is the best way to do it, is for the text portion of your of your presentation, go ahead and write that out as you would, as a document, a Word document, till you have those 8 or 9 pages. Then figure out how to put it in the presentation and where to put the pictures and the data tables, any interview responses you want to put in there. You'll also need to have a bibliography at the end. That's important. Also, a part of that 8 to 9 pages should be a general history of your school. As you see here, that'll be just 1 to 2 pages out of the 8 or 9. Now, your overall project is going to be the history of the particular issue that you're looking at in your school, but you should also provide a general overview of the school, 1 to 2 pages long, at the beginning of the PowerPoint. When did the school start? How did it grow? What's it like today? How did it change over time? Right? So that'll be 1 to 2 pages of these 8 or 9. The rest of it will be discussing the history of your particular diversity and equity issue. Now, based on the issue you choose, some of you will find that your issues have been around a long time. So there'll be lots of information going back maybe even to the early 1900s. Other of you might choose a more recent issue. Maybe it has to do with LGBTQ in your school and clubs to meet the needs of different kinds of students. You might find that those are relatively new issues in your school. And so the history of that issue might not go back, more than 10 years or maybe even a little less than that. If you're concerned about your issue not going back far enough and not having enough of a historical component, email me about it and I'll look into it for you. At any point you have any questions about this project, because I do want you working on it on a regular basis. I would set aside a few hours a week to work on it. So again, you don't wait till the end of the semester and try and throw it all together, which won't work. Email me as you're going if you have any questions. Exam format, I already talked to you about that. Those are going to be essay in format. The essay, each essay topic will be a set of interrelated questions. The format for the exam topics will be similar to the format for the discussion questions that you'll be getting to answer throughout the semester. General criteria for written work here. There's also that writing guide that you'll find under files in Canvas that I just updated over the weekend. This is just some information for those of you who are going to be going into teaching. The writing requirement for education students, if you are in one of our education majors, that's not the adolescent cert students, your writing requirement will be in your disciplinary area, if it's math or English or whatever it might be. But if you're in early childhood or special education, the writing requirement for you will be in Education 354. That'll be way at the end of your blocks before you do student teaching. So you don't have to worry about that, but just it's a piece of information that's on there. Information about certification tests. You can check the New York State Teacher Ed website. Here's a link for it right here to look at certification tests that you'll need to take. You know, obviously don't need to do any of those right away, but just so you can look ahead and maybe save the link for these on your computer. There will be one real key text for our class. That will be this School and Society. I mentioned Tozer's the first author. It's Tozer, Violas, and Sinise. And actually, the most recent edition, the 8th edition, it might only be 2 of them. Either the 7th or 8th edition will work. You can buy it new, used, you can rent it, you can get it electronically, however you want to access it, as long as you've got the book, 7th or 8th edition, and have regular access to it. That's what's important. We'll be using this pretty much on a weekly basis. There also is a course packet that's available at Sundance Books. For those of you who are going to be on campus, you can get paper copies of the course packet, which will have the discussion questions and some other readings in it, and some case studies. If you're not going to be on campus and are not going to be able to get to Sundance Books, you'll be working from home or whatever, I will make available to you electronically in Canvas the items from the course packet that are the absolute need to have things, the discussion questions and 1 or 2 other readings. So even if you can't get the paper copy of the course packet, you can get the key items from it electronically through Canvas. If not, if you're going to be on campus or around campus, you can get the larger version of the course packet from Sundance Books up on Main Street in Geneseo. So excerpted readings, all of those are actually in the course packet. You can see here the ones that I've made available for you on Canvas. If you can't get the course packet, the Plato reading, the Dewey reading, and the Ayres reading, which we'll be doing during the semester, you can get those in Canvas. I was able to scan those and make those available, or find scans online and make those available. The other readings are informational, interesting. I would encourage you to read those if you can, if you've got the whole version of the course packet, but we're not going to be discussing them in class, or I'm not going to ask you any questions about them. So those are the excerpted readings. Excerpted just means I took them out of a larger text. They're typically chapters or portions of a larger book. So here's the course outline. When things are due, you'll see that they are bolded. So you'll see that basically we'll be doing 2 days on each chapter of the Tozer text. So for example, we have 2 days with Tozer chapter 1, right? 2 days with Tozer chapter 2. I didn't mention the book here, but you can see that it's the same chapter here. These are the same chapters from the Tozer book. Even if I didn't mention chapter 2 over again, I didn't mention chapter 3 over again here, or 4. I think may have only done it for the first one. That's why you'll see the chapter listed twice. The first day, make sure to have it read. The second day is when you turn in the discussion questions by 11:59 on this date, February 10, for this first set. I will publish in Canvas the assignment for these discussion questions, giving you some directions and also giving you the discussion question for that particular chapter. So you'll have that document as an attachment to the page in Canvas. So basically, for the most part, you'll have discussion questions due every other day, but there will be some intervening days when we're doing some other things. When there are due dates for papers, I generally haven't had any other things due, so you can focus on getting those papers done. So the first paper, again, is that self-profile due on the 17th. First response paper you can see is due the 8th, midterm the 29th. You'll see the first research report is due March 10. So by that point, you should have chosen your school, your topic. You should have reviewed the school website, the state education department website for your particular school. Started looking around to see what, what's going to be available to you for the project in terms of what you can find online. And then you'll have 2 more of these project reports updates. You will see that these are, they're available under files in Canvas, but they will also be included in the assignment when I publish it as attachments in Canvas. But in case you need an extra copy, you can find it there. I think that's about it. Here you see when the 3rd report is due, April 26th. The actual assignment is due the 18th. I will either do a lecture or a large announcement helping you prepare for the final exam on the 11th. The final exam will be the 14th. We do have a makeup day, catch-up day, which might be helpful for you just in starting some of your final preparations. A lot of students use that for to get, do some work on their project, which is due on the 18th again. And then again, for those of you in the School of Ed, or one of our lesson programs, you have until the 18th to upload your, sorry, I'm confusing here, to upload your project to TaskStream, excuse me, the 21st. Project is due the 18th to me through TaskStream. By the 21st, you need to have it uploaded to TaskStream. So I think that was everything. You'll see lots of other resources here that you might want to look at. Some of these might be available electronically. Just suggestions for further reading. If you do have any questions or do want some other suggestions for reading, if you can't find any of these electronically, just let me know and I might be able to find some other resources that are available electronically for you that will also on whatever topic it is you're looking for information on. But it's a pretty lengthy book. I just actually updated it recently with Ibram Kendi's Stamped from the Beginning, which is about racism in America. We just read this book, some of the faculty and staff of the School of Education over Intersession. We had a book club when we read this. We have 2 other book clubs coming up that we'll be doing during the semester, where we'll be doing an adolescent education version of this text, as well as another book that you may have heard about before. I'm trying to remember where it's probably listed here. It's also another text you might want to check out. Daniel Tatum's Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting Together in the Cafeteria is another really good book dealing with issues related to race and ethnicity. So just to let you know about that. So I think that's it in terms of what to be doing here in the short term, what the expectations are. You've got read chapter 1 of the Tozer book for February 3rd. Try to have it done by the end of the day. There are no discussion questions for it. I won't be updating a lecture on that. Just make sure you have that read. It basically tells you how this book is organized and how the authors want you to use the book. So it's not really a substantive chapter. It's just a sort of how to read this book kind of chapter. Then you'll be reading either from the course packet or from the electronic version that I made available in Canvas. These 3 sections of Plato's Republic for Friday. I'll also be uploading a lecture on Plato's Republic to Canvas on the Canvas page on February 5th. Then we move on to chapter 2 of the Tozer book on the 8th, on the 10th, on that Wednesday. You'll have the first set of discussion questions due. Those will be for Tozer chapter 2, obviously. And again, I'll be publishing those assignments a few days ahead of time, so you have some advance notice about that. Again, on the day that I have PowerPoint instruction research project session here, I will be making that available to you as a link to a lecture that Steve Dresbeck put together. And I'll also make available the links for you for this online materials research project session that our librarian has put together for us. So I know it's a little confusing. There are a lot of things, little pieces that have to fit together. And it, again, it'll be a few days and I'll get you your group numbers. You'll first be using, really not until the 10th for the discussion questions. Those are the only things you'll be using your group numbers for. But I think you'll find after the first couple of weeks, you start to get a sense for how things are going to work, and it'll be a little less confusing. But at any point, any questions, please let me know. On your own time, you might want to read through other parts of the syllabus I didn't have a chance to talk about with you, in depth. Hope you found that helpful. And I will be uploading a lecture on Players Republic for you at the end of the week. And remember that you have chapter 1 of the Tozer book to read for Wednesday. See you later.